To this tutorial where we're going to look at the features of Logic, in particular how we can start mixing and preparing ourselves for mixing. This tutorial is going to cover features such as listening through the tracks, how we put the tracks into Logic, the difference between mono and stereo at a very basic level, looking at how we adjust levels, mute and solo functions, as well as pan. We're also going to do a quick overview of the idea of the stereo field and placing instruments within this. So to begin with, what I'm going to look at is I've just opened up Logic. We will see here that I have the introduction screen, which is asking us to create a track. At this point, I'm just going to create one audio track, which gets me into the file. So in here, we call this our arrange screen. And what I'm going to do is I've already got my files. I'm going to drag these into the arrange screen, drop them in. I want to create new tracks. The best thing about doing this is it automatically names all of those tracks. So rather than dragging and doing that individually, if you drag the files in like that, we get everything named for us. So that's a great start. Having a look at these files, I would suggest that the first thing you want to do is to listen to the song in its entirety with nothing changed in it. Just get a feel for the overall song. Once you've done that, okay, so pause the video, listen right through the song. In this case, we're listening to Hold On To You. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get a bit of an idea of what's on each of these tracks. To do this, I'm just going to start at the beginning. I'm just going to hit solo. So here we can clearly hear we've got the bass kick drum track, and what we'll notice that it's quite a low sound. We can also get a bit of an idea, and behind that we can hear the hi-hats and the part of the snare, particularly the rim click. Very bassy track, and that's going to help to build our bottom end. I'm going to listen to the kick front. So this is usually a microphone that's placed near the beater of the kick drum, and it just picks up a bit more of the click of the kick drum. So it's really worth having balancing this out with our other kick drum in particular. So we've got a nice bass, solid low sound with the click, which gives us the definition. Again, we can hear that there's other instruments or other parts of the drums that are picked up in those. It's very difficult to actually do any of these in isolation. You can use effects such as gates, but at this stage we don't really need to worry about that, and in fact it adds to the overall sound of the drums. Let's have a listen to the snare now. Okay, it's sounding what I would say is quite a tinny snare, which means that it's lacking a bit of bottom end within it. So that'll be something that we'll want to address in a moment, but we can also hear that we get quite a bit of the hi-hats, and we can also hear more of the cymbals in that. So as we listen to each of these, we're just building a bit of a picture in our heads what each track sounds like and what the qualities are of those tracks. We'll listen to the overheads now, and what we're going to notice that's different about the overheads is we can see these overlapping circles here. These indicate that it's a stereo track. So if I double click on this one, it brings up our wave image. We can see it's a singular wave image. If I click on this one, we can see there are two. What that means is that what we're hearing in each of our ears is we have the left channel and the right channel. These are not identical, and we start to get an idea of the stereo image. So when we listen to this one, we should actually get a bit more of a sense that we're in the room. So if I just play this for a bit longer, and I'm just going to compare where you hear this one, it should feel like it's around you. As opposed to our snare drum, which is going to feel like it's directly in front of you. So that's worth being aware of, and this really helps to build the overall picture of the drums. That's where the overheads are very, very important and going to be an important tool for us. Let's continue on. Let's have a look at the bass. Okay, so we get an idea of the bass guitar. We want to make sure that links in nicely with our kick drum, so that'll be something we have a look at. Our acoustic guitar. Okay, so that's obviously going to be one of our harmonic instruments that we need to pay attention to, our electric guitar. Okay, very similar to the acoustic guitar, but we have what we call a different timbre. So both guitars, but the sound of it is different, the acoustic guitar to the electric guitar, which has an amped sound. Now, our slide guitar sort of features throughout. And one thing that we're going to need to do is make sure there is a solo section where we want this to feature. So we want to make sure that during the song, it's not going to be overpowering our vocals that we're going to listen to next, but also that when it has a chance to feature, that we let it do so. And lastly, our lead vocals.
You look out, your spirit's breaking through, caught in some Gordian knot that was made just for you.
And we can see here we've got a period of silence, which is possibly where that solo comes into it. So first thing you need to do is listen to each track, get a feel for each track, get an idea of how it sounds, and we will start to develop a vocab where we can actually define what we are hearing. So at this point in time, we're going to move on. I'm going to hit X, which is going to bring up my mixer. Now, our mixer is nice and straightforward, and just while I'm here, I'm going to hold down Command and Delete, get rid of that audio track that I created earlier. Looking in here, we've got basic functions such as the volume fader. That obviously controls the volume of that particular channel. We have 9 channels in total, 1, 2, 3, 4 are drums. Remember, this is a stereo channel. You'll see it's got a slightly wide fader, and when I solo this into play, we can see there's actually 2 meters there for left and right. Further along, we have our bass guitars and slide guitars. Now, one of the first things I would actually do with something like this is just to open it up a bit before we actually start mixing too much. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to pan my acoustic guitar and my electric guitar in different directions. So have a listen to this now.
Days too long and the beats all wrong.
We should be starting to build a bit of an idea of what we call the stereo field, or the field in which it's recorded. So with this as well, I can hear already that the slide guitar is sort of competing with the vocal. I'm just going to pan that in the opposite direction to my electric guitar, seeing as they have a similar sound. It's just to give them their own place in the mix.
When the throat can't make a sound.
Already, within those couple of movements, what we've done is we've found room for the vocal to come through. I haven't changed any of the levels. All I've simply done is started to pan these. Now I'm just going to show you a little diagram that I have here, just in terms of where things should go in the mix. This is not an absolute, it is not a rule or anything like that, but it is a recommendation, and you'll listen to different records and everyone will have a different way of doing this. Number one thing in a song like this, lead vocal, very much foremost in the mix, should be sounding like it is directly in front of us. Other things that we put in what we say is the center position is the bass and the kick. The reason for this is that bass frequencies, the more you pan them, the more you lose the lower end. This actually indicates that the further around we go, we actually get a decrease in volume. So kick and bass, very essential to keep those as close to the center as possible. We can see that our acoustic guitar, they've actually put it to the right side, and the lead guitar to the left. That's absolutely fine. Again, the idea here is that we have separation between those. If we had more tracks for the hi-hats, toms, we can separate those out further. Our rhythm guitar, which in this case is our acoustic, has actually moved over to this side, so I have actually done that the other way around. Again, there's no hard and fast rule. This is just an indication of where we place things. So last thing I want to show you is just very quickly, we obviously have the solo function here, which highlights those tracks. We also have the mute. So if I mute these and play,
Then there's a hold on you.
We can hear the mix without the drums. So those in some ways are very similar, and other ways are very different. Now, if we want to just highlight certain things, I want to hear how the lead guitar, the electric guitar and the acoustic guitar, I'll just highlight those tracks. Now if I hit solo, only those ones are lit up.
Look out, your spirit's breaking through, caught in some.
And if I hold down Command and hit solo, it will unsolo those. If I've got everything like this, and I have these ones soloed, I've just decided I want to have a listen to these.
Gordian knot that was made.
I want to unsolo all those tracks. This is where you hold down Command, unsolo, and we're back to our position
Just for you.
with everything in it. Okay, that brings us to the end of this first tutorial, and what we're going to have a look at next is adding in insert